Have you ever just stopped and wondered what's really causing all the friction in your life? At work, with your family, or maybe even just that battle going on inside your own head. Well, today, we're diving into some ancient wisdom that honestly feels like it was written for this exact moment. We're unpacking the 4th chapter of the letter of James, and it is an incredibly powerful, practical guide for getting to the real source of conflict and actually overcoming it.
James just jumps right in. He doesn't waste a single second. He opens with this really direct, piercing question that forces us to look right past all the surface-level stuff and ask, what is really going on here? And it's a question that hits home for all of us, right? I mean, who hasn't felt the strain of conflict?
And right after the question, boom, here comes the diagnosis. James argues that the root of our conflicts, it isn't the other person. It's not the situation. The problem is internal. It's born from our own cravings, our own selfish desires. He says these desires are literally at war inside of us, and that internal battle, it just spills out into our relationships.
So James breaks this problem down into 4 key behaviors that really displease God. It all kicks off with those selfish desires, which, naturally lead to fights. From there, it can grow into what he calls friendship with the world, which is this mindset of putting worldly values first. Then comes pride, and James is crystal clear. God actively opposes the proud. And finally, all of this leads to judging others, basically trying to take God's place. You can see how each step just moves a person further and further from unity.
So what on earth does he mean by friendship with the world? Now, he's not telling you to go become a hermit and live in a cave. He's talking about your value system. It's about when you start to prioritize the goals, the ambitions, the pleasures of a society that doesn't really acknowledge God, when you put all of that stuff above your relationship with him.
And James really doesn't pull any punches here. He puts the seriousness of this choice in the starkest terms possible. You just can't have it both ways. According to him, trying to be buddies with both the world system and with God, well, it's impossible. Choosing one makes you an enemy of the other. It's a line in the sand.
Okay, so after diagnosing the problem so intensely, James does a complete pivot. He introduces the solution. He points to the one single quality that he says can reverse this entire downward spiral, and that is humility.
This right here, this is one of the most powerful ideas in the entire letter. It's presented like a fundamental spiritual law. God actively works against the proud, but to the humble, he gives this incredible gift of undeserved kindness. This is the key. This is what unlocks everything else.
And the contrast here could not be clearer. I mean, look at this. On one side, you've got haughtiness, which puts you in direct opposition to God, leads to conflict, and it's all rooted in self. But on the other side, you have humility. That opens you up to God's kindness, it leads to being lifted up by him, and it's all rooted in submission. The choice and its consequences are laid out perfectly.
And James doesn't just throw this big idea of humility out there and leave us hanging. He gives us a practical, 4-step path to actually get there. Step 1, submit to God's authority. Step 2, oppose the destructive influences, the devil. Step 3, actively, intentionally draw closer to God. And Step 4, cleanse your actions, that's your hands, and purify your motives, your hearts. So, that's the theory. But what does this humility actually look like in real life, day to day? James gives us 2 very specific examples, and he starts with the first and, let's be honest, the most common area where our pride shows up, the way we speak. The command is so simple and so direct, stop speaking against one another, but then James explains why. He says that when you judge someone else, you're doing way more than just criticizing a person. You're actually setting yourself up as a judge of the very law of love you're supposed to be following.
And here is the core reason why, and it's a big one. There is only one true lawgiver and judge. When we judge others, we're basically trying to sit in God's chair, and that position isn't ours to take. Our role isn't to be the judge. It's to be a doer of the law, to actually live it out, not to stand on the sidelines critiquing everyone else who's also trying to follow it.
All right, on to the second practical application of humility. And this one has to do with how it affects our whole outlook on the future and the way we make our plans.
So James paints this picture of the kind of thinking he's talking about. On the surface, it sounds like a totally standard business plan, doesn't it? Today or tomorrow we'll go here, stay a year, do business, make money. But notice what's completely missing. Any acknowledgement of life's uncertainty, any mention of God's role in any of it. It's just pure, self-confident boasting, assuming everything will go exactly as planned.
And right after that example,
Here comes this profound reality check from James. He uses this beautiful, incredibly powerful metaphor. You are a mist that appears for a little while and then disappears. Wow. Just think about that image for a second. It's meant to completely shatter our arrogance and reframe our whole perspective on life.
So what's the humble alternative? Well, it's not to stop making plans, it's to hold those plans with an open hand, always acknowledging God's sovereignty. It's about cultivating a mindset that says, if Jehovah wills, we will live and also do this or that. It's a really small change in language that actually reflects a massive change in your heart.
And you see, this all loops right back to that central truth we touched on earlier. There is only one lawgiver and judge. Recognizing that simple, powerful fact should humble us, and it should shape not only how we speak about other people, but also how we plan for our own future.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, so let's quickly recap the key takeaways. First, conflict starts inside us, with our selfish desires. Second, friendship with the world puts you in opposition to God. Third, humility is the absolute key to receiving God's favor. Fourth, our plans should always acknowledge that God is ultimately in control. And finally, knowing the right thing to do and not doing it, that's sin.
So that leaves us with one final question to think about. James's advice is intensely practical. So looking at your own life right now, in which of these two areas, your words about others or your plans for the future, can you start to practice just a little more humility, starting today? Thanks for joining us.